When Americans think of Congress, we often imagine bustling committee rooms, clashing ideologies, and the balancing act of democratic debate. But beneath the surface, a slower, more deliberate operation has taken place: the ideological infiltration of the United States legislative branch by Marxist and communist forces that are hiding behind modern labels like democratic socialist and progressives, equity advocates. Over the past 30 years, what started as an isolated fringe of ideologies in an academic and activist circles began seeping into the party machinery, particularly within the Democratic Party. With the help of long entrenched members of Congress and sympathetic staffers, Marxist aligned policy positions found their way into major bills, committee appointments, and even leadership roles. With names like Bernie Sanders, a self-described democratic socialist long aligned with Marxist economics and DSA. Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, DSA member who advocates for the redistribution of economics and centralized government control under the guise of the Green New Deal environmentalism. Representative Rashida Tlaib, Ilhan Omar, Cori Bush, the Squad all promote anti-capitalist, pro-Palestinian narratives in line with Marxist and Leninist frameworks of decolonization and intersectional class warfare. Once these individuals gain office, they almost never leave. The power of incumbency is bolstered by media loyalty, union backing, and gerrymandering of the districts that allows Marxist-aligned politicians to remain embedded for decades. They build networks, fundraise for allies, and they shape the party from within. According to a 2022 report from Open Secrets, congressional incumbents have a 94% re-election rate. Once re-elected, they're nearly impossible to remove, especially when they're protected by ideologically friendly media and activist groups. One of the most effective countermeasures to ideological entrenchment is congressional term limits. We've all talked about it. Everybody wants them. Without them, these career politicians have been free to embed their Marxist ideas deep within our policy's infrastructure, doing it across decades. The Founding Fathers envisioned citizen legislatures, not lifetime political aristocrats. Today, some members have served longer than autocrats in foreign nations. Some proposed measures for fighting this would be 12-year congressional limits. That's either 2 Senate terms or it's 6 House terms. A ban on lobbying for 10 years after you get out of political service. And make mandatory ideological transparency. We make sure that they have to disclose their affiliation, such as the DSA or Socialist International or whatever other communist party wants to call itself these days. The benefits of term limits: it would dismantle the entrenched ideological networks. It would create political opportunity for non-Marxists to reform the system. It would recenter focus on service to the people instead of power over the people. Term limits wouldn't just retire the radicals, they'd pull the plug on support systems that keep them in office. The fundraising machines, the staff networks, the ideological grooming operations, they'd all be gone. Many of these figures are connected with the Congressional Progressive Caucus, one of the largest ideological groups in Washington, D.C. Beneath the label of progressivism, that includes many who openly align with Marxist principles, sometimes even directly echoing the language of the Maoists, the Castroists, and the Soviet decline. In some cases, they even co-sponsor bills with open calls for government controls on healthcare, energy, education, freedom of speech. Here's a few examples for you. The legislative examples like the Green New Deal, the proposed federal control over housing, jobs, and energy production. Medicare for all, government takeover of a private industry sector. Bans on misinformation, often designed to criminalize dissent from their narrative and cap your free speech. The halls of Congress were once home to statesmen, patriots, defenders of the liberty. But today, that marble has got red threads running all through it. Some of them are as old as the Cold War. And unless we act with bold reforms, like term limits on Congress, citizen oversight, these threads will become chains. The Constitution is supposed to be our final firewall. But what happens when the judges become activists? Under Marxist influence, the courts have started legislating from the bench. They redefine terms like equality and justice to mean equity, privilege, and redistribution. They're not interpreting the law, they're remaking it, they're weaponizing it. From abortion to immigration, from free speech to gun rights, every ruling seems less like a law and more like an ideology. And what's worse is the rise of Soros-funded prosecutors that's led to the selective enforcement of laws. Crime ignored, patriotism punished. Lady Justice isn't blind anymore. She's just wearing the mask of a Marxist. The courtroom was once a place where justice was blind and truth was sovereign, and law reigned above ideology, but not today. These activist judges are twisting the Constitution like a wet rag to wring out their ideology. They strike down immigration enforcement, gun protections, and election integrity laws, all in the name of equity and progress. Since Trump's re-election, we've watched rogue district judges unleash a new strategy of lawfare and they've done it with nationwide injunctions. Their rulings aren't based on constitutional concerns. They're political sabotage. That's plain and simple. A Texas judge tries to halt mass deportations. A California court blocks reforms of Title IX. A New York bench strikes down law enforcement protections even as crime explodes in the city. They're not applying the law. They're protecting the Marxist status quo. Each injunction is a delay tactic. It's a firewall to slow down the restoration of American values. It's not about justice anymore. It's about buying time for their revolution. At the federal level, judicial nominations have become a conveyor belt. It's just an ideological conveyor belt for the operatives that are groomed in law schools, funded by globalists, endorsed by radical legal groups like the ACLU or the Brennan Center, and they're fast-tracked by politicians with socialist sympathies. District attorneys in major U.S. cities, many backed by Soros-like or linked organizations, they refuse to prosecute violent criminals, but they throw the book at patriots who dare question any authority. In their courts, looters walk free. But a January 6th defendant, he's got to rot in solitary confinement. Even the Supreme Court isn't safe. The push to pack the court, undermine judicial independence, and delegitimize constitutional rulings is straight from the Marxist playbook. If they can't control that ruling, they'll attack the institution itself. They don't just want justice, they want judgment, and not from the law, but from the powers who control them. The question is how long are we going to allow the courts to be used as weapons? How long? The gavel was meant to keep the peace. Now it smashes down like a mighty fist of an angry God. The executive branch was once the final line of defense against ideological subversion. The office of the presidency, the agencies that carry out our laws, the military command designed to protect our republic. Over time, the Marxist ideology found new frontiers within those as well. Not through brute force, but through bureaucratic entrenchment, policy manipulation, executive overreach, the alphabet soup of agencies like the EPA, the ATF, CDC, DHS, DOJ, they were all once tools for order and safety. Now they're just platforms for policy-based governance. That is, ideological governments without electoral authority. Executive orders became the new law. Pandemic mandates bypassed Congress. Equity replaced with equality in all agency mission statements. Bureaucrats who were never voted in became architects of our national culture and our national collapse. One good example is how the CDC went from tracking to diseases to implementing housing policies by suspending evictions. That was a clear overreach, even if it was a pandemic. The Department of Education pushes gender identity training while ignoring that they have declining literacy rates and kids can't count to 6. DOJ now targets parents and treats them as whistleblowers and treats them as domestic threats. Marxism demands the suppression of dissent. And once the executive branch was captured, the suppression began. From the IRS targeting conservative nonprofits under Obama to the DOJ labeling parents at school board meetings as potential domestic terrorists, the FBI surveilling traditional Catholics and pro-life activists, all of that evidence is mounting up and it's starting to become exposed. The federal government now sees traditional America as a threat. One example, the 2023 DHS censorship collusion with social media platforms like Facebook, Twitter, to suppress dissenting views on the COVID-19 pandemic. Elections, border policies, it was all confirmed through internal documents and court cases. Even the Pentagon has not been immune. Wokeness now walks the halls where duty and discipline once ruled. Warfighters attend DEI seminars. Officers are selected based on their identity quotas rather than on their merit. CIA recruitment ads profoundly push diversity before capability. West Point cadets read the book White Fragility. What was once a sword for our national defense has been dulled by woke ideology. Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin ordered an unprecedented 60-day military stand-down in 2021, not because of a foreign threat, but to purge what he considered to be extremism, a label that increasingly includes conservatives, veterans, religious patriots. But now, Defense Attorney Pete Hegseth, with the blessing of President Trump, is on a mission to restore the proud warrior ethic to our military. They're trying to clean out this subversion. They're making the right moves. How do we win it back? Sun Tzu once said, "If you know the enemy and know yourself, you need not fear the result of 100 battles." This fight to win back our government, the Republic, it's not just about opposing policies. It's about understanding the nature of the ideology that has embedded itself deep within the American system. Once you know your enemy, and we know what they're doing here, and you know yourself, we are patriots. We want to preserve the American values that we love. We need not fear the result of 100 battles. The Marxist, socialist, communism infiltration, this stuff isn't random. It's strategic. It's generational, and it thrives because so few citizens actually know how to recognize it anymore. We need to wake them up. So what do? We expose them. We confront them. And we reform them. Not through violence, by putting a stop to their ideology. Congress must enact term limits because entrenched power is the breeding ground of Marxism. And if we put term limits in place, they'll no longer be able to entrench very deeply. The bureaucratic state must be dismantled. Agency by agency, regulation by regulation. Most of all, the people need to wake up. This isn't about left versus right. This is about right versus wrong. It's about liberty versus tyranny. We've reached an inflection point in our history, the crossroads of consequence. What we do now, what we fight for, will reverberate throughout history. People will speak of it 1,000 years from now. In this fight, it isn't on some distant battlefield. It's happening right now in your churches, in your neighborhoods, in your schools, in your local governments, your state governments, your federal government. All of the branches in between, we've outlined this here. It's right here: courts, Congress, communities. The enemy's already inside our walls. You're listening to Uncle Sam Saves America. I'm Uncle Sam.